What's going on, YouTube? I am B Dobbins, FTW. And in the week since E3, Halo fans have had a lot to be excited about. A newly announced Halo title accompanied by an intriguing yet cryptic trailer stuffed with Easter eggs and clues has given us all an excuse to engage in Halo players' second favorite activity. Breathless online speculation about the future of the franchise and the deeper meaning of its marketing gimmicks. Hopefully it's not all as pointless and irrelevant to the game as Hunt the Truth turned out to be. This was at least partially confirmed on Bungie's website, where the game was described as a living, breathing world ripe for exploration and endless gameplay possibilities, but it's worth noting they did not explicitly use the term open. Which may mean nothing, or it might mean the game will be something closer to Destiny and Monster Hunter World as opposed to Skyrim or Witcher. Which would probably make more sense anyways. Clever enthusiasts on Reddit were able to make out the date in a Crash Pelican, suggesting the game takes place in May 2560, about a year and a half after Halo 5. And they were also able to decipher the Morse code transmitting from a Marine encampment, which translates to SOS Zeta Halo Grid. Now, Zeta Halo has been mentioned in multiple Halo books. It's known to have a species of deer whose description seems in line with the deer we see in the trailer. It was a Halo ring where ancient humans once lived and were cruelly experimented on by Forerunners looking for a cure to the Flood. So based on all that, you can kind of see where things are headed. It's also worth mentioning there's been some speculation that composer Martin O'Donnell may be returning for the game. 343's previous composer Kazuma Janucci has departed, and O'Donnell recently tweeted out a selfie of himself with classic Halo's lead writer Joseph Staten and Cortana voice actress Jen Taylor, following it up with a cryptic tweet that said, "There was nothing random about our meeting." So he may be coming back, or maybe it's just an epic troll, but taken all together, there's undeniably a lot for Halo fans of all stripes to be hyped about. And just browsing the forums, you can really feel people's excitement. With gaming communities playing larger and larger roles in shaping the games they love via online feedback, and with Halo 5 itself being a great example of that, today I wanted to explore in depth the 5 things Halo Infinite has to get right so that the excitement and hype that will undoubtedly consume people for the next year doesn't end in a whimper. Number 1. Recapturing classic Halo vibes. Fans have noted that the Infinite trailer appears to signal a return to Halo's classic art style. This is good. Halo 4 and 5 were ugly and cartoonish. In the remastered versions of H1 and 2, I always preferred to play on the original graphic settings because despite the fact that the remasters were technically more detailed and higher quality, I still found the old art style much more immersive. This is because old Halos had a gritty, subdued, militaristic style defined by dark greens, grays, and blacks. The Pillar of Autumn did not feel that different from the inside of the realistically depicted submarines you'd see in movies like Crimson Tide or Red October. The humans' equipment, weapons, and vehicles felt reminiscent of real-life military tech you'd see in documentaries, the news, and movies like Black Hawk Down. But the new styles, in both the remasters and sequels, felt much more like something you'd see on Cartoon Network. The human tech was as bright and colorful as the aliens used to be, and the aliens' color schemes felt like looking over children's schoolwork on acid. Part of what made a movie like Alien such a classic hit and so scary was that despite taking place in the future, it had a very contemporary feel. The familiar hum of the computers, the click-clack of the keyboards, the construction equipment and clothes feeling just like what you'd see in blue-collar factories across the country in the 80s. It brought the film to life and made it more immersive in a way it wouldn't have been if everything was bright and colorful and fantastical. Classic Halo reminded me a lot of Alien. Its muted, gritty atmosphere made it more emotionally impactful than 4 and 5. And it's not just the art style, it's the whole tone of the games. You know, Halo 5's opening scene perfectly captures how ridiculous and over-the-top Halo became. In classic Halo, the Chief was a super soldier, but he spent his cutscenes crouch-walking and checking his corners. He felt vulnerable and real. But now, you got full snowboarding down a mountain, wall-riding wraiths, kung fu fighting groups of Covenant single-handedly. It feels more like one of those absurd chicken fights in Family Guy than a sci-fi military shooter. It's completely lost the seriousness of the moment, which is a tragedy in a game whose story is supposed to revolve around big, scary, real themes like extinction, genocide, religious indoctrination, and the morality of recruiting child soldiers. And some of classic Halo's best moments were eerie, ominous, scary, just like Alien. When you first discover the Flood, that shit gave me the heebie-jeebies, and I just don't think they could accomplish that today with the Saturday morning cartoon atmosphere they've since adopted, which will especially be a problem if they really are planning on the Flood making a return in this installment as the trailer and lore would suggest. Number 2. Sprint. In an interview, Xbox marketing chief Aaron Greenberg told GameSpot that Infinite will be returning to the series' roots. Could this be an oblique reference to the deactivation of Sprint? Well, if it isn't, he's not telling the truth, is he? In a tweet that has since been deleted, developer Josh Holmes had claimed that a majority of players preferred Sprint based on a survey 343 conducted via email, while polls conducted by online gaming communities such as Team Beyond, R Halo, and Halo Waypoint have all found the opposite to be true. Meanwhile, the explosive popularity of the El Dorito mod and the fact that Microsoft felt threatened enough to bury it, and anyone who ever mentioned it, proves that there is still widespread demand out there for a Halo multiplayer experience without Sprint. None of this evidence is exactly scientific, but what is clear is that Sprint remains a divisive issue among the community. I've said it before and I'll say it a million times more if I have to, there is room for both sides to get what they want in this debate. Presently in Halo 5 you have like 5 ranked playlists, 7 social, 4 Warzone, and a buttload of people in custom games browsers and Forge. Surely there is room and population enough for 2 or 3 classic playlists with Sprint deactivated. At this point, not including classic playlists feels more like an intentional slap in the face to the series' oldest fans. It's not entirely necessary to explain how Sprint adversely affects the game. Anyone who's played classic Halo immediately notices the difference when it's included. But I will anyway. It's well established that Sprint is mostly an illusion. To keep the maps balanced, they have to enlarge them significantly, therefore you aren't actually getting around the map any faster, you just feel like you are. But the consequences of these larger maps are that they essentially remove the close quarters and vertical combat scenarios from the game that really define classic Halo in the past. And in reality, it actually slows down the combat because enemies are able to escape fights they aren't going to win by sprinting away. Now 343 knows that, which is why they don't let your shield recharge while you sprint, and they don't let you initiate sprint while taking damage, but this still means that escaping is as easy as getting behind cover briefly and then running away, leaving your pursuer, who in past games would have simply won the fight, with no option but to sprint after you, which isn't usually a good idea, or he just lets you get away. It's especially easy to get away in long-range gunfights, and since close-range combat is reduced in frequency and intensity by the large maps, what you have left is gunplay that is terribly inconsistent and watered down. But of course they didn't put sprint in to improve the gameplay, they put it in to satisfy an instinctive urge people feel to mash the sprint button after they've played other shooters that have it. When I get on CSGO after I've been playing a bunch of Siege, Battlefield, and COD, there is something mildly infuriating about not being able to mash shift to sprint. But this doesn't mean CSGO would benefit from adding it in. They know that because they are smart and realize sprint is a net negative for competitive arena shooters. But 343 adopted a different route and instead hamstrung their game so that COD players wouldn't be annoyed when they couldn't go fast. Or maybe they did it because it didn't make narrative sense that super soldiers couldn't sprint, because that matters, despite the first 3 Halos blowing up while their multiplayer made zero narrative sense at all. So let's nip this in the butt real quick because there's a simple solution to this fallacious argument. In Halo's lore, specifically Halo Reach, it's mentioned that the Spartan suits designed to respond to the wearer's movement and dramatically increase speed and strength would seriously injure regular, non-steroided out users who would have their legs ripped off if they moved too fast. So okay, in the non-sprint playlist you have your regular Joe Marines being equipped with new Spartan suits that give them badass capabilities, but their mobility is restricted so that they don't hurt themselves. And just like the other modes, it'll have to be computer simulation because it still doesn't make sense that Spartans are fighting Spartans, so whatever. And if it is a computer simulation, why does it have to make any sense at all? I don't know, but people care about these things. So boom, done. Put sprint in, no reason not to. It would put to rest the most divisive issue in the community, bring back classic fans, make the community feel heard, and everybody will love the game. Number 3, story. All that being said, it's actually time for Halo's in-game campaigns to rely less on the expanded universe lore. I've always thought it was cool how interwoven the books were with the games. There was no better feeling than playing co-op with your pal and feeling superior by out-nerding him with cool fun facts like about how Keyes and Hasley used to have a thing. But it's gone too far. The expanded universe used to complement your campaign experience, but it wasn't essential to understanding the in-game story. Understanding how Sergeant Johnson survived Halo Combat Evolved was cool.
So, Johnson, when you gonna tell me how you made it back home in one piece?
Come here, you mother... Oh, this is it, baby. Oh.
Sorry, Guns. It's classified. My ass!
But not knowing didn't hamstring your understanding of Halo 2's plot. But nowadays, speaking as someone who played through every campaign multiple times, read all the terminals, read like the first 4 or 5 books, I still had no idea what was going on during the Halo 4 campaign. It was not clear to me why the Forerunners were coming back, or why they were so pissed off, or who the main villain characters even were. In Halo 5, I didn't know who Locke was, where he came from, or what his motivations were. I didn't understand where Blue Team came from and how Chief got hooked up with all his other OG Spartans who I thought were dead. Because I hadn't read the most recent books, or watched the web series, which were ass and got terrible reviews, by the way. This whole larger narrative about the mantle, that was never made explicitly clear to me in the campaigns. That had to be explained to me on Reddit, and I can only imagine how confused someone would be if they hadn't engaged with any of the expanded universe, or if, like me, the last time they had was a decade ago. The Infinite trailer itself is a completely different experience if you understand the expanded lore. When I first saw it, I was like, meh, but then I read a bunch of stuff from Redditors, and I was like, whoa, that totally blows my mind. And there definitely should be some of that, but it's gone from adding to the in-game experience to being required for it, or otherwise leaving huge gaps in the plot. One of the reasons they emphasize it so much is that expanded universe stuff is actually great for business. Companies want a franchise. Brands like Star Wars have actually made way more money off their toys and books than the movies themselves. And Halo probably has the most successful expanded franchise in gaming right now. They pump out books, comics, shows, and toys at a rate unmatched in the industry. But the games themselves should be more than just attempts to bait players into buying your IRL microtransactions. They should be able to tell a meaningful story all on their own, even to someone who is entering the universe for the first time. Number 4, avoiding the nostalgia trap. It was Halo itself that first introduced nostalgia to the gaming masses with Anniversary in 2011. Since then, nostalgia has had a corrosive effect on the industry. Dozens of projects that run on nothing but the fumes of the past, trying to resell us rotted pieces of our childhood. But you can understand developers' desire to rely on it. The most powerful part of the Infinite trailer for most people was undoubtedly when you see Chief's helmet at the end. But the truth is, they should have left Chief in stasis after Halo 3. It was a poetic end to a poetic story. It's supposed to hurt. You're supposed to miss him. Now he's just a 50-year-old virgin whose only love interest is a busted computer program. From what we know about the Infinite trailer, it's pretty clear what's gonna happen. The writing is on the wall, literally. You're gonna crash land on a Halo ring and accidentally unearth the Flood in some testing facility, and then you'll have to save the galaxy, which is the exact same plot of the first game, and starring the exact same character. And considering a remake of that game has already been released on 2 separate occasions, Infinite could end up being the epitome of redundancy. In conjunction with the fact they're talking about returning to the series roots and bringing back classic art styles, I worry that this game is just gonna be another icky attempt to repackage my memories and sell them back to me. And it's like I was just talking about with COD, they can resell you the game, but they can't resell you your childhood. Yes, some things should remain consistent in a game franchise, but we should also look for, demand, and value new things more. I want playlists without Sprint, but I also did enjoy Warzone. I preferred the classic art styles, but that doesn't mean that 18 years later, I still want the same characters, plot, and setting as the first Halo game I played. I mean, Jesus Christ. So with that in mind, number 5. Halo Infinite should have Battle Royale. Now, I know immediately many people's reaction to this is going to be hostile. This is probably why 343 has already announced they aren't planning on a Battle Royale mode. But I think that's a huge mistake, because Halo was meant to have a Battle Royale. In fact, it's a monumental failure that 343 was unable to discover this mode before it became so mainstream, because they have had all the pieces in place for an excellent Battle Royale mode since at least Halo 2. I don't feel the same way about most of the other games jumping on the BR bandwagon. I don't think the game mode will be very fun in COD or Battlefield. I try to keep an open mind, I just don't see how those game mechanics will complement the mode. But Halo's mechanics really would. Imagine for a second that instead of parachutes, 100 ODST drop pods fall from the sky. You have modest speed and directional control, but if you push it too hard, you burn up in the atmosphere, just like in the books. You hear your friend's character scream in agony over the mic. You land in a mysterious Forerunner structure. There are crashed Pelicans and the charred remains of dead Marines everywhere, their gear scattered about. The scramble for loot is all too familiar because it's the same scramble for loot you've done at the beginning of every Halo multiplayer match you ever played. Because unlike those other titles, Halo has always been about the loot, and who's gonna get to the sword first? It's the same in Halo's arena as it is in when you first land in Battle Royale. The fight breaks out and it's chaos, dozens of different weapons, needlers, plasma pistols, dual SMGs, and DMRs fire in every direction. When it's over, you scavenge the bodies and feel an inner satisfaction as you grab up all sorts of super useful loot from the franchise's past. Shield generators, bubble shields, overshields, plasma nades, and active camo. A Pelican flies overhead, and instead of a crate, it drops a series of weapon pods like from Halo 2, and you get to them first, and they're stuffed with all kinds of goodies. Shotguns, sniper rifles, and rocket launchers. Medkits that heal you in a satisfying flash of white like from Combat Evolved. But now you've got to move, because the storm's coming in. It's the green, foggy stench of the Flood, flakes of their matter sprinkling from the sky. And when you get caught in it, infection forms spawn from the ground all around you to leech your health. So you fight them off, but that leeches your ammo. Later, you've made it to the very end. It's 1v1 now. You close in on your final enemy with a shotgun. But he has armor log, so you're screwed and you rage quit. Haha. I'm just saying, Halo has always been a great looter FPS. Out of all the FPS games out there, this was the only one that I wanted to jump on the bandwagon, and somehow it ended up being the only one that has declared it won't, which is tragic, because it would be a great way to keep moving the franchise in new, unexplored direction. So to summarize, as long as the next Halo game adopts all of my preferences, it will be good. Otherwise, fuck it! Thanks for watching. Please remember to rate. Check out my Discord. This is Batman, signing out.